Hi, small business heroes. It's me again, Gloria Chow, award-winning small business PR expert and your unofficial hype woman. So today is all about podcast guesting. And if you love podcasts as much as I do, you know the power of podcasting. And because this podcast is all about giving you organic visibility strategies to get sustainable growth for your business, I'm not talking about pay-to-play scams, right? One of those like appear in Forbes or appear in like most innovative entrepreneur that get no reach. I'm talking about what is the most powerful, lasting, organic, visible reach that gives you credibility and authority. Podcasting is one of them. So I'm going to share with you 3 reasons why guest podcasting needs to be a top priority for your PR and marketing efforts this year. Okay, so I can give you all of the stats about podcasts, how they're growing, how Spotify and Apple and all of them are investing in growing the reach of podcasting, about how people are listening to podcasts more every single year. But this is more about the other reasons why you should get on podcasts. I don't need to convince you that podcasting is something that people love, that people have trust when they're listening to someone's podcast for 30 minutes. Your likelihood of selling to them if you are in their ear for 30 minutes is so much higher than any Instagram post, any TikTok reel, or any YouTube video, right? That is pretty much like, we already know that. But here are the 3 reasons why you really need to think about guest podcasting and pitching to get onto people's podcasts over and over and over and making it a system in your business this year. Now, if you want to hear all about my proprietary pitching method on how to get yourself onto whether it's your first podcast or 5th podcast, go to episode number 4 of this podcast. And you can do that after the episode. I'll link it in the show notes, but it's gloriachowpr.com/4. because it's episode number 4. So that's gloriachoupr.com/4. It's all about how to pitch and get into podcasts, even though you've never been on a podcast or maybe you have no PR experience. All the podcasting that I've done is through cold pitching. So it absolutely works, my friend. Okay, back to the 3 reasons why you really need to make guest podcasting the number 1 priority in your business visibility plan this year. Number 1 is, unlike social media, podcasts give you SEO and backlinks to your website. Because when you appear on someone's podcast, it shows not only on all the podcast players, but there will be likely associated blogs and show notes that when you Google will probably rank on the top page. Now, when I Google myself, right, Gloria Chow, it's mostly my podcasts that show up. It's not me spending time on TikTok or Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter. Even though I've devoted so much time to it, it's not going to be my primary strategy. Why? Because you don't own your social media. I can't tell you how many times I've had people in my PR program tell me, oh my God, my Instagram got hacked. And all the years that I spent building that audience, now it's over, right? Or on Facebook. So what I'm trying to get you to see, my friend, is there's no better way than to get onto other people's podcasts for that sustainable, long-term traffic and audience growth. So that's SEO, that's backlinks to your website, because if you do appear on a podcast, the host is going to link you and your about section and a blurb about you and even whatever freebies or opt-in that you want to promote onto the show notes. And then it's as easy as you Googling it. So that is the number 1 reason of 3 why getting onto other people's podcasts should be your number 1 priority this year. And just to be clear, this is about getting onto other people's podcasts. This is not about you starting a podcast. A lot of times I know there's some confusion. And I get asked this all the time in my PR program because we have a Facebook group and we have coaching and they say, oh, I really want to start a podcast. I think that is a really great avenue. And I say, you know, it's fine to start a podcast, but what's even better is spending your time getting onto other people's podcasts, people who already have an audience. They have built and trusted and cultivated that audience of eager listeners. That to me is a way better way to use your time than starting your own podcast, right? So I encourage anyone who's thinking about maybe one day starting their own podcast is to get on at least a few of other people's podcasts. It gives you traction. It gives you SEO. It expands your network and you get comfortable learning about different show formats. So again, if you were to ask me, I've probably gone on to at least 60 different podcasts before I started my own podcast. And through that exercise, I was able to get the SEO, the backlinks, the traffic, the authority, build my network, and learn how to conversate in a way that's so easy for me to start my own podcast. So remember, the hallmark of a good CEO is not how many hours you spend working, but what are the highest leverage activities you can do for every 1 hour of work. And so for me, I'd rather spend 1 hour getting onto another person's podcast and using my PR program to pitch. And again, I have a database of all the different podcasters on there. It's as easy as plug and play and pressing send and getting on people's podcasts. I'd rather do that all day than spend hours on social media for a couple dozen views that may or may not even circulate tomorrow, right? So I'm not saying that there's no place for social media. I'm just saying that out of all the activities that you can do to get the best ROI for your time, guest podcasting is number one on there, my friend. Okay. So we talked about SEO backlinks, right? As a number one reason why guest podcasting should be number one on your PR and marketing plan. The second reason is that there is no better way to build new audiences. Now, what I mean is, look, there's audiences everywhere. There's audiences on social media. There's audiences on YouTube. But research has shown that when you are leveraging someone else's audience, when you are invited as a guest on someone's podcast, someone that has meticulously built trust with their audience, there is no direct and better way for them to end up following you and knowing about you. I can't tell you how many times people have joined our PR program for small businesses. And I always ask them, how did you find me? I would say more than 5 times out of 10, it's that they heard me on a podcast. Now, it might be a mixed journey, meaning that they might have seen me on social media, but they always validate their purchasing decision to join my program after they've heard me on a podcast. So yes, maybe they discover me on social media, but that is not going to convert them, because what better value than getting into someone's ear for 30 minutes so that they understand my energy and my tone in a way that Instagram just can't, right? That is so flooded. So that is number 2 reason why guest podcasting should be number 1 on your PR and marketing plan, is that it is the direct way to build trust with an audience that is already eager to engage with you, right? Because by pitching, you've already kind of been vetted by the host. And so that layer of work that you're doing is going to go so far, because the host is saying, here's my loyal audience and I'm trusting you to be on my platform and talk directly to them, right? So that's really what I mean by that trust, that audience. I'd rather convert 5 or 6 new, really loyal followers who are interested about me and my work and what I'm trying to do to make the small business landscape more equitable than have 100 views on Instagram from people who might not even be my ideal customer avatar, right? They might be people who are on there looking for cooking videos, and all of a sudden they see my video. Sure, they might scroll past it, but they're not in a position to want to be closer to joining my program or really getting into my world. So that's really what I mean by podcasting. Another thing along with this, growing your audience and getting that loyal following, is that it also expands your network. So obviously it expands your network in terms of traffic and SEO, but it also expands your network not only with the podcast host, but all of a sudden this whole blue ocean opens up where you are able to pitch to that podcast host network, because you've already been vetted. So I always say, all you need is that one yes, whether it's that one earned PR feature or that one podcast, and then it becomes a snowball effect. Because what you can do is take that one podcast, and I don't care how low ranking it is or how tiny the audience is, you can go and pitch for the other one and say, hey, I've been on this person's podcast to talk about X, Y, and Z. And boom, automatically you've been vetted. You show the person that you're pitching to that you have eloquency when speaking, that you have already been vetted, and that you are someone who has value that podcast hosts want to share with their audience. So it expands your reach and expands your network in every way possible. And it really elevates your ability to reach higher and higher for the people who you thought might not be in your reach, right? It's all possible if you start building that. So that's number 2. And the third reason, probably the most actionable, tactical, or should I say the most tangible reason why getting onto other people's podcasts should be number 1 on your priority list for your marketing and PR, is that just getting onto one person's podcast, I don't care if it's 10 minutes or 10 hours, you will have dozens of shareable content. So follow along with me. If you're multitasking, come back. If you get onto one person's podcast, and now most people are recording on video on Zoom, you will have audio, show notes, you will have blogs, you will have long form or short form video content that you can turn into TikTok, Reels, IG Lives, IG broadcasts, YouTube long form, YouTube short form. You also have quotes that you can turn into carousel posts. You have audio bites. There are so many different ways to repurpose, whether it's 5, 10, or 30 minutes of conversation that's both video and graphics and audio, that I would rather do that all day than come up with original social media content. Let me say it again. I would always rather have reusable content from getting on a podcast and then reposting that onto my social media than coming up with social media from scratch. And that's why if you look on my Instagram at Gloria Chow PR, most of the reels are taken from my podcast. So whether it's my podcast that I'm recording right now, which we record on video and we will put it onto YouTube and LinkedIn and Twitter and TikTok and audio and podcast players, but also snippets of me on other people's podcasts. So here's kind of a quick tip is if you actually do want to start your podcast one day, again, it's not the first thing I would do. I would definitely get onto other people's podcasts first. But if you do want to start a podcast and you're looking for content, you can easily go back to the people who have interviewed you on their podcast. And it's as easy as saying, hey, I loved our conversation so much and I want to give it a bigger lifespan, a longer lifespan by repurposing that and re-airing it on my show. And I've never, to this day, I've never had a single podcast host who's interviewed me to say, nope. And Kate, in fact, they also are so happy because it means that you loved your conversation so much that you're willing to share it on your platform. So to me, I can come up with 50 different reasons why getting onto other people's podcasts is so much better than your marketing or social media strategy. But here are just the top 3. So to recap, it's SEO, it's backlinks, it's expanding your network and making you more and more sought after by showing that you've been vetted to people's audiences, making it much easier for you to reach that next person and that next person. And the third reason is that it comes up with already dozens of social media content that you can use without actually having to create original social media content. So again, think about what you're doing with 1 hour of your work. Is it better to spend 1 hour to create one social media post or 1 hour to record a podcast on someone's podcast where you can get SEO, backlinks, authority, credibility, engagement, new audiences, as well as dozens of content that you can recycle? And here's the thing. Once you are on someone's podcast, well, 9 times out of 10, they're going to want you to share it and they will give you all of the files. So they're going to give you the transcripts, the blog, the show notes, the graphics, the audio, the video that you can use a very simple AI tool, whether it's like vid.ai or anything like that, to create additional pieces of social media content. It's kind of the gift that keeps on giving. And that's why I really urge you, my friend, this year, make it this year the time that you start pitching on to get onto other people's podcasts. You can start small. You can start niche. Think about all the different topics that you can talk about. Don't pigeonhole yourself. So for example, if you have an e-commerce product, let's say you make a wellness water bottle, you might think, well, I don't think there's a podcast about water bottles. No, my friend, think about wellness. Think about lifestyle. Think about travel. Think about gift guides. Think about sustainability, all the different things and the utilities and the themes that go into your business. Because I promise you, your business is never just about the product or service that you're selling. So I'll give you an example for myself, right? I am a small biz PR coach. My whole mission is to elevate diverse founders. Growing up, I never saw anyone looking like me in the media. And so I vow to change that by helping diverse small businesses feel confident to pitch themselves. So you might think I only pitch myself for PR and marketing podcasts. Well, that's absolutely false. I've been on Money Mindset podcast talking about my scarcity and generational trauma. I've been on leadership and team building podcast talking about how to delegate PR and how to actually grow a team. I've been on time management podcast talking about how to reduce overwhelm when you have so much on your plate. I've been on podcasts featuring diverse founders and people of AAPI heritage because I'm a first generation Asian American immigrant. So think of outside the box about all the different buckets of topics that you can talk about. And again, I have all the resources for you in my PR starter pack where we do unlimited coaching inside of our Facebook group and monthly coaching with me and journalists to coach you through your pitch and being able to be in a container of other businesses and other founders who are pitching themselves for different angles. You start to get so many ideas. You will never run out of ideas. So you can join my program at prstarterpack.com. You can follow this podcast. You can go to gloriachowpr.com/4 of my exact step by step strategy on how to land media and podcasts specifically, because that is a big part of our PR program. I show you exactly how to do it with my 3-step pitching framework that I came up with by literally cold calling, because my friend, I never had any PR experience. And if I can do it, so can you. So thank you so much again for listening to this episode. I cannot wait to see you back here. If you love this, please, please, please give us 5 stars and a review. Tell me what you thought. And don't forget to connect with me on all the social medias. I'm at Gloria Chow PR. And as always, thank you for listening.